Hello and welcome to our cultural session documenting Syria, health, space and activism, where we will be in discussion with the pioneering director Waad Al-Kateab about her multi-award-winning documentary For Summer. My name is Bahriye Kemal and I'm a lecturer in contemporary and post-colonial studies at the University of Kent, and I would like to welcome you here today on behalf of Cara, the Council for At-Risk Academics. This cultural event is part of a 5-day online Cara Syrian Programme Symposium entitled Voices from the Syrian Academic Community. As part of the symposium, we have thus heard and will continue to hear the over 50 Syrian voices who are displaced in Turkey, as well as different parts of the world. These Syrian voices have been telling us and responding to the past, what has been happening within the past 10 years. So it's been more than 10 years since the people of Syria have rose up against the repression of the Assad regime and against the powers that back that regime. As we all know, Syria's war is a world war, fought by proxy. On one side, the Assad regime, backed by powers like Russia. On the other side, powers like ours, the UK, who first supported the rebel forces, then pulled back. The symposium has thus shown that though millions have been tortured, killed, displaced, forced to leave, the people of Syria stand strong with hope for a better Syria and a better world. This symposium has shown total hope with concrete impact and change. This week, we have been introduced to an array of outstanding academic and creative works by leading Syrians. For example, today, I went to an outstanding session on a series called On Infrastructure, confirming that roads may be blocked and buildings may fall, but the Syrians will make them rise again. Another excellent session on energy security that demonstrated that the lights go out, but the Syrians find their way to take action in the dark. And earlier this week, we had some amazing sessions on societal change and gender, where the scholars showed us that the women of Syria are not weak victims, but they have a presence, they speak loudly, and they take action with concrete, impactful roles throughout the revolution and war. I was honored on Monday evening to share a platform with 7 of Syria's most resilient women, including Samer Yazbek, Fatma Nawal Basabashi, Hiba Al-Haji, Amal Kasir, Jian Saidise, Ibtisam Tracy, and Foizia Al-Dared, all of whom showed us that they are a central force that stands strong with total hope and demonstrate their commitment to expose the truth of what is happening in Syria and actively constructing a better Syria. And today and now, I am absolutely delighted and honored to be sharing a platform with another force, the force they call Waad Al-Kateab, who has, together with all of the 50 voices and so many more, stood strong with total hope and commitment to expose the truth of what is happening in Syria and to expose a truth where we collectively can make a difference and construct an alternative Syria. This evening, you will experience this hope, this resilience, this truth, hearing about Waad Al-Kateab's documentary For Summer, which has been defined as a love letter to her daughter. It's been defined as the female experience of war. It's been defined as a documentation of the Syrian lived experiences throughout the 5 years of the uprising and war. So for the first 30 minutes or so, Waad and I will be in discussion about For Summer, talking about the politics, the personal, the artistic, in light of the revolution and war in Syria. After that, the last 20 minutes or so, we will open the stage for questions, for your questions, and my colleague Maggie Grant will be monitoring the questions. So please do keep popping them into the chat box so that she could feed them over to us, and I can pass them over to Waad. So now I would like to introduce the star of this evening. I'm delighted to introduce Waad Al-Kateab. She's a Syrian activist, an award-winning filmmaker. She became a citizen journalist in 2011 after protests broke out across Syria against the Assad regime. And in January 2016, she began documenting the horrors of Aleppo for Channel 4 News in a series titled Inside Aleppo, which received an international Emmy. Waad's first feature documentary that we're going to be discussing today for summer it was co-directed with Edward Watts, and it's received worldwide critical acclaim, winning numerous awards, including Best Documentary at the Cannes Film Festival, at the BAFTAs, and has been nominated for Best Documentary Feature at the 2020 Academy Awards. Waad has also received several personal recognitions for her work as an activist and filmmaker, including being placed in the 2020 Times 100 list of most influential people. Waad, her husband, and her beautiful 2 daughters now reside in London. She continues her work with Channel 4 News, is a mentor for Marie Colvin Journalist Network and International Centre for Journalists, and dedicates time to her advocacy campaign, Action for Summer. So welcome, Waad. It's such a delight and honor to have you here today. I've just spent the past 5 minutes introducing you and introducing your wonderful documentary. But I think a lovely way for us to start is for you to introduce yourself. So who is Waad, and what is For Summer? Tell us a little bit about For Summer as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bahriye. I mean, it's an amazing introduction, and I don't know who could refuse this, but I would start with like, I'm definitely not a star. Like, I'm not a celebrity. I'm not like this kind of things. I'm more like a Syrian woman who just believe that there is hope in Syria and there's hope in the future. And at that time, when I'm talking about this, it was like 2011, which is more than 10 years ago. I was at that time a student at Aleppo University, trying just to like graduate and do something I believe in. I learned before I go to university in Syria that like in Syria there's no future for us, and if you really want to do something in your life, you should think about leaving the country. And that was actually my plan until the revolution happened in 2011. And at that time, I was at the last year doing marketing at Aleppo University. And that's where I felt that, like, no, there is hope that we can do something here, and we can. I joined the protest with so many people, people who I know, my friends, other people who I just met there, people I would never even thought I could be like friend or like known them. But the revolution like make us all as one community, as one exact like family, I would say. Um, and just like with 10 years of so many things, I'm finding out myself now as a refugee in London, in the UK. I made my way here 3 years ago. I live now with my 2 daughters, my husband. I'm still believing in everything we chanted for in 2011, although I believe that it's very hard to make this change. But I think that this change is the only thing why I'm still alive and why I'm waking up every day. So I'm holding to this very like tightly, and I hope to keep going as so many other fellow Syrians.
Yes. So you're holding on to the amal, Waad. We have to hold
Yeah.
on to our amals, don't we? Beautiful. And can you tell us a bit about the documentary For Summer? So why did you create this documentary? What was your goal in creating this documentary, and the process of creating this documentary?
So I always wanted to be a journalist or like something in the filmmaking. And like obviously that was before 2011, something like absolutely not in Syria. And for this reason, I chose to do marketing. I felt like there's something kind of like similar in having like an open work, a very kind of like creative work. You can make your own project and try like to, you know, like kind of, I don't know how, but I felt it's something could be like lead me at the end to be like a filmmaker. And yeah, before I finished my university, the revolution started. Joining the protest was my first like thing I have done. But then like directly after that, I started to feel, as so many other Syrians and activists at that time, we have to document all of this. We have to film first for ourselves, second for our people who is around and not really seeing what's happening, and then to the whole world. There's another layer, of course, of how the regime was denying everything. And we felt that every picture we can take, every like audio we can record, this is kind of like a proof of our existence. So I started filming like very random videos in very bad quality, um, like a material. I didn't understand what filming mean at that time. I had just my phone, and day after day, with a very collective knowledge for all the activists, we started to understand how to do this, where to do it, how to protect ourselves while we are doing this, and how to kind of like produce this material to the social media. I was not very good at that because since day one, I wasn't able to separate myself from the protest. So there was very kind of basic rule when you need to film something is like you can't chant with the protest. You can't be appear in these videos. You can't talk to people while you're doing this because this is all will like kind of ruin your security and people can find out who is the person behind this camera. And for this reason, I couldn't like use any of my material for any social media in the early days. And someone told me like you're kind of useless in being like as an and like media for the being activist.
Yeah.
And I was like a little bit upset with that comment, but at the same time I was like, I don't care if I'm gonna use this or not. Like I just want to keep going, and I can't just like not talk with people while I'm doing this. And actually, that was the main theme for Sama has, which is was very personal. Like first like record personal message. So I found out later that this is might not be immediate effect when I was filming in the early days, but it was kind of like work as a documentary. Um, and I made the film after I was displaced out of Aleppo. So that was 5 years ago. I walked out from Aleppo with 12 hard drives, 12 tera hard drives, or maybe 14 tera. And um, it's ended up with me with Channel 4 News, where I was working a little bit for them while I was in the siege. Um, and at that time, we couldn't like communicate properly. My English didn't help me. The situation talking from Aleppo to London was just like hard to explain everything what I was doing there. So when we after we were displaced, I came here for the first time for some award ceremony for the news, and that's when we started the conversation about what I want to do next. And I start to share with them the material that I have, and that's when Forsama actually came like to be kind of like an idea to be done. We worked for 2 years, me alongside with Edward Watts. I learned so much from him and from the whole process of making the film. And it was 2 years, which is very hard for me emotionally. But I got an amazing support from Ed and everyone who worked on the film. And it was just an amazing experience to just feel I'm like doing something, like to Aleppo, to the people who were there, to everything I've been through. And I was so proud that I was able to make the film and to make it done. And at that point, I couldn't understand how the film could really affect the world. If audience will listen to this, if people would come to watch this film. And this is something we've been told a lot as we were working together. And even Ed, like, you know, at some point he kind of believed in the same thing. No one is really cared about Syria. And the film and the reaction of the audience all over the world show us like exact the opposite of what we thought. And really like where the film goes. And I'm not just talking about the very high amazing places where we went to, from Cannes to BAFTA to Oscar, but also to each small town and every personal like screening some people has made in their own houses, just to share the film with people who maybe have never even heard that there's a country called Syria. And that's for me, like the amazing reaction that the film made.
Yes. Wow, wow. Thank you so much. So many more questions that I've got, particularly related to your relationship with Channel 5. I really want to talk more about that and the hard drive. But I'm also really interested in the question of, because it ended up being, like you said, an award-winning documentary film. And I'm really interested in, you said openly, you said from the outset you wanted to capture the truth of what was happening, and I keep hearing this, in a lot of the material that I'm reading about the case of Syria. And I'm really interested in your thoughts in terms of, do you think the documentary form was and is the most fitting for your mission as an activist journalist, for the mission of capturing the Syrian revolution and war? So, for example, on Monday, I was with a group of Syrian women writers and poets who were speaking about the power of the pen to write the war. So I guess I'm really interested in your thoughts on that, on the role of documentary form, and of course the role and responsibility of the artist and filmmaker in relation to documenting the revolution and the war.
If you want to think about everything happened in Syria and all the death, all the silence that the regime wanted us like to be all over the places, like in different kind of ways, there's no way and there's no like kind of violence who didn't like use just to make us like silent, to make us not be able to speak, to like make us disappeared. And like if we were like detainees, or if we were being threatened with our like families or our lives, if we've been under shelling or bombing, if we've been displaced out, like all of these forms was just to make us silent. And I really believe that each way of expressing any feeling against that is very effective and very important. So I totally agree with these amazing women who I admire all, like, and I don't know maybe all of them personally, but I know a lot of what they have done through these years, and I'm looking for more what they are going to do. But I think really each way, each picture, each sound we can make, each story we can like talk about, even like random conversation in the street, in a bus or in a tube station, like anyone who could add another information about Syria, I think this is really important way. Regarding documentaries, exactly, I've worked a lot on social media and then on the news, which was like my channel 4 news platform was like a great place to get attention about so many things. But I really believe that the documentary was a different kind of way, and I might not be able really to identify this if it's the most effective one or not. But I would say that I saw how people were reacted to the film in totally different way as any other things I've been done before. And just the way that people in this like an hour and a half, they were able to put themselves in my shoes, walk into the street of Aleppo, having Sama as their own daughter, thinking about Hamza or their beloved ones as the partner who they really care about, and they are scared and terrified of losing him at any second.
Mm.
Um, Feeling this like hope and pain at the same time of where we were and where we're going to, and the this like awful feeling of missing like your home, and even when you were there, I just feel like all these things literally touched people's hearts, and it's hard to forget. um, Again, any other form of expression, any other form of recording and documenting the stories are very, very important. But I just felt that the documentary was like a very, very powerful and effective way, which lasts with people in people's mind and hearts like for a long time.
Yeah, definitely, totally. I think it's exactly what you say in terms of, it's the power of expression, whether creatively, artistically, but capturing that lived experience. I was also really interested in your when you were saying that towards the beginning, it was just about having the camera and capturing as much as you can. And then slowly you develop the skills to become, of course, an award-winning documentary filmmaker. I'm really interested in your influences. So did you find when you did realize, this is actually forming into a fabulous documentary, were you inspired and influenced by any Syrian filmmakers, whether that be those from the pre-revolutionary period, like Hannah Ward, Ali Atasi, or any of these, or there was a lot of activity, of course, during the revolution, with lots of amazing activity when it came to, as exactly what you said, social media and everyone documenting. Was there anyone that influenced you during your process of producing, and when you were envisioning the kind of documentary that you would like to produce?
I mean, to be very honest in this, and I always kind of like call this back because I feel like as much as people always tell me like, yeah, no, it can't be like this, or you should not even say this, even if that's the truth. Like, I mean, since I was very young, I've never watched cinema. Like, I've never been, I think I went to cinema like twice in my whole life. I don't know any like Syrian films or even international films, and I feel so embarrassed now in so many like
Oh,
places. Starting from BAFTA and Oscar, about so many people who I met, and it was like a very big director or producer, and I've never even watched any of their films. But I think, and I didn't even understand what you were mentioning about, oh, this is a great documentary, until maybe like after the first screening of the film. And I'm calling this back because it was something very, when I look back, it's so funny. At that time, it was very terrifying moment for me. But we were sitting alongside with the audience at South by Southwest in Texas, which is like like not a documentary, like a film festival, have like different kind of films and series and fiction and documentary. And that was our first premiere. And we were sitting with the audience, waiting to see how many people would leave before the film even finish. I mean, I believed in the film. I believed so much in every frame and every second I said something within the film. But at the same time, I didn't have any trust with the people outside. We were feeling so much abandoned at that time. We were feeling that this is all happened and no one did anything. Why this film would even like make people think? Because we assume that people knows, we assume that people like just busy with their own life and they can't do anything. And maybe way after that I started to feel like, yeah, that was an amazing documentary, and kind of like proud of making this as a kind of filmmaker more than as a just like Waad who lived this story. But also with this journey, I would say I met so many amazing filmmakers and people who kind of regret why I don't know them before, um, and other people who I start like now to be friends with, which is like an amazing documentaries been out, like from Syrians and from different kind of people. But also I learned so much about this experience and about how you have to protect your own film and your own story, because within the people who are not pro Assad, there was so many issues and problems, and like copyright problems with owning this material, with owning the story, with how people sometimes does not respect the people who lived through this. There's some examples where some directors were just taking this material, making their own version from these stories without even involving the people who filmed the whole film, or like who they lived through this. So I was also so like kind of terrified about having any issue, especially that this is not just a film I like I'm not a filmmaker. I don't consider myself a filmmaker at that time. I was more like just an activist, and I want to protect the story whatever like it cost me. So it was kind of like bittersweet thing within the whole way. And I hope that so many other filmmakers could learn from this, and especially like in Syria, and people who still today in Syria or they've been getting out. We don't have the like knowledge of what filmmaking mean, were our rights, how it should be, like so many things, like we had to learn it by ourselves, we had to learn it from our mistakes. And I really hope like we can again collectively be able to make this knowledge within the Syrian community.
Yeah. Wow. And what would be, like you said, for there's so many Syrians listening to us, and that this is being recorded, Waad, and of course it's going to be shared as well. Uh, to those Syrians right now in Syria, what would be your advice for those who are interested in capturing and documenting what is happening in Syria, those who do want to be possibly filmmakers? What would be your guidance and advice to them?
Main thing is to keep filming, and this is something I have done myself, and I saw how moments, like I haven't used it maybe in For Summer today, but I'm sure there's so many places where I can use this material, and at the end it's like a record of our life. So just keep filming whatever you think. If this is silly, stupid, normal, not important, not interesting, just keep filming. That's I always keep repeating this to all my friends, all the people who they speak to me about this. The other thing, which is more about like no one will be able to protect this story and this material more than you. No one will have whatever experience they have, whatever skills they have in making like the best films all over the world. You are the only one who can own the story and who can like make it as you really lived through. So just be careful about any decision you make through this process. Have people who you can really trust, who can really feel comfortable with, who doesn't like put anything before the benefit of this film or of your experience. And this is really like so difficult because like I was lucky enough to have great people around me. I know also other people who unfortunately had bad choices, but at the end I just feel like this is not just like material we are make. This is not like a business for us. It's not just films. It's our life. It's the
Yes.
only thing we own today. And for this, we really have to fight a lot to protect it and to keep it like as we really like feel it's right to be.
Wow. And I think that I think we should all take that, and everyone should hear that. Keep filming. And it's really made me think about you when watching For Summer as well, that just your process that you kept filming. And I even sensed sometimes when you were filming that there were moments where I felt like you was going to turn off the camera. It was so intense. Were there ever any moments when you were documenting where you said, man, I think I need to turn off the camera, or when you did actually turn off the camera? Can you tell us about those moments?
Yes, I mean, there's a lot actually,
Yeah.
and a lot of not keep filming, and a lot of moments where I just feel like no, but then I feel like guilty because I turn it off. One of the main moments I always really like would love to talk about is the moment when the baby who was born because of the shelling, which was like one moment in the film where the woman who's like Mesa, she's 9 months pregnant woman, and she had to deliver the baby in emergency operation because like she was injured by shelling. And at that second, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have this like voice in my head telling me like, turn it off, leave, leave, leave. And it has so many like complexity and so many complicated like feeling to express. But the basic one, which is what was very obvious for me, like I gave birth to Sama in the same room exactly 3 months ago when that happened. And just this feeling like I still was able to feel this in my body, in my mind and everything. Like I was pregnant and I gave birth to my first daughter there. I can't imagine how this woman, when she's gonna wake up and see like there's no baby, like because the regime killed someone before he even was born. Like the whole idea was something so like awful, I would say. And I was like, I have to turn it off. I wasn't able to handle this. I was crying behind the camera. And when the baby like opened his eyes,
Mm.
I mean, I still not able to believe that this is reality. Although I was there, and although I have this material, and although it's been like broadcasted 10,000 times, I've seen this video, I don't know how many times, countless times. And always I go back to this video exactly when I feel so depressed and so bad. This is always like, you know, a whole like energy of hope I can take it just to remember that moment. And when I saw the baby like open his eyes, I was looking into his face through the camera, and then I felt that like it's definitely I lost my mind. This is can't be true. And I tried to look like behind the camera, you know, just to make sure like I'm not imagining this. So I mean, since that time, and I keep always like remembering this second. And I know sometimes even when we were when I was filming like someone who's been buried like under the ground, I know that this is nothing going to be changed now, but I feel this responsibility and this kind of like this is the only thing I can do there. This is the only thing I can like try to make difference. And it's not about me at that second. It's not about if I'm able to handle this or not. It's about them. It's about to keep this like more and more. So I mean there's so many moments of this, but this is really like something I always kind of like remember, because as much as it's awful memory, it's like an amazing hope for me and for so many people who have seen this
All of us, yeah.
moment.
Totally, totally. And I also really interested in you were saying about keep filming and then own your material. So this has made me also think about that, you know, you've worked with Channel 4, the Western media. You already gave us some information about your collaboration with them. Can you tell us a little bit more about your collaboration with Channel 4, but also did you collaborate or were you approached by other Western media? What was the experience there? Did you find with any media outlets, Western media, that you were used as a source? And I'm also, sorry, there's a couple of things packed in there, really interested in what you said about your 12 hard drives. So 12 hard drives, I'm not quite sure what that is, but maybe 300 hours of footage. How did you edit that massive chunk to 90 minutes? Did you have a say with Channel 4 in this process?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I don't know where to start because this is a lot, and then each part of this is really important things to say. I mean, I will start from the hard drive because this is what I remember now from
Yes.
the question. Sorry.
Sorry. I'll ask you.
Yeah. Okay. So the 12 hard drives is what I was collecting through the whole 5 years from my material when I was at university, and then in east part of Aleppo, and then in the siege and all of this. And I didn't understand how to organize this. I didn't know that part of like it's not just important to film, it's important also to organize and to know where and what to name every clip of this. So I have like a whole mess, you know, like this 12 hard drives. I have no idea where is everything. I can log in, I can see everything. I know like each video, I can tell you exactly what is inside from just the first like the symbol that this video have. But there's no way I can explain this to someone else, like, you know, and someone else can do this by themselves. So I had around 4 months just trying to name and to group these clips with each other, like to make it as like related to a place, to time, before the siege, after the siege, what's happened, peaceful demonstration, like so many kind of like different kind of organizing the clips, plus like stories of people who I followed for years. And that's why, for example, Afra story was something important because it's something I followed through the years, and I had to, you know, like also not just date or place, it's also like people and stories. And there was so many things, so many things. And even after this 4 months, I can't consider that I have my archive now like is kind of like organized. I really need to do this kind of at some point in my life, and only this thing.
Mm.
um yeah, then we had kind of a month where I was sitting with Edward, just watching and watching and watching and telling about everything come to my mind when I'm seeing these clips. What was happening before, was happening after, who are these people, like, what they mean to us, what they don't really mean, if I don't even recognize them again, and so many like details around this story. And then we had to start kind of like, yeah, the first thing we did after watching everything, before we even like put any clip on the editing, I we did 5 days of filming with me, asking myself questions, and Edward as also asking me questions, maybe from the minute I was born until like that exact moment in London. And these 5 days of filming was something, I would say, so hard, but so useful, even for me to take one step back to watch what happened in my life. We did another 2 days with Hamza as well. We were trying to kind of like link, or listen to some stories from his point of view as much as my point of view. It ended up at the end not using any second of this interview, which you can see in For Summer, because all the material we used at the end was all from Aleppo. But it was very helpful to lay down the story and understand who we are, why we are these people, like why we still laugh, why we still feeling hope after everything we've been through. And that's actually helped us a lot with 2 years of, like, it was just me and Ed who, like talking and talking and talking. So many conversation we had with Hamza, some conversation I had with Afra and her family as well. um, and I showed the film at some point to some Syrian friends who were in Aleppo, like some people from something called the AMC, Aleppo Media Center, and people who were in the city, like other filmmaker and other activists who they've been through this like events in their life, and they just wanted to understand, like, if I'm really telling an honest story, even if this is something I hate to say, but that's important to be there. And the reaction when I got, when they have seen that, was really important, and helped me a lot for more like developing the film and making the kind of like the last version of what I wanted to say. um, so it was mostly me and Edward who's kind of like arguing about so many things, but also it was an amazing process of, like, it's my story, I lived through this. Edward have never came to Aleppo, but his experience and his skills with making like other films and being in other war zone spaces, well, and also understanding what audience in London or UK or USA or Europe, what they understand from Syria, that was so good to kind of like make the story something as personal as we can, but also as global as it was. So, like, so many people also at Channel 4 News and Channel 4, they were like listening to this conversation, or giving us feedback about what each version of the film was look like. But I would say with so much like pride of this, that at the end, everything it was in the film was my say and my decision at the end. And that's really where I feel like I was really lucky to have these people with me, because they don't just want the film to be as good as it could be, but also they really respect that this is my life and this is my story and this is what I really owe to my country and how it should be like at the end.
Wow, lovely. So that's amazing to hear that you had that agency to make the decisions in the production of the documentary.
And
So
this is very important, like to say, not because I'm strong enough, it's because they respect this as well. And this is maybe a call not just for the filmmaker to be strong enough to ask for their right and be able to own the story, but also it's more like a call for the broadcasters or for these production companies, for these producers who sometimes like usually like work from far away. Like, you have to give this space to these people. If you really believe and you really want the film to be as like best as it could be, you have to give them the space, because they are the only people who can see like the truth of this, and they can really feed back and give like the best thing about the story. So it's literally at the end, like it's a win-win for both sides, but it's really how we can like share this respect and learn from our like strength, our knowledge, our understanding, you know. And at the end, this is all at the end, like this story, like for this production company, but also for these people who lived through this.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Wahad. Amazing. So I've just got a few more questions, but I'd just like to say to the audience, please do pop your questions into the chat box because I'm going to feed them to Wahad now. I'm really excited to open the platform. So I'll just ask a couple more questions and then we're going to move on to your questions. Wahad, we've already touched on impact, the political impact this has had, and I'm also really interested on the personal impact. In terms of the political impact, of course, you're a campaigner, an activist, you're a witness, you're a survivor of war crimes, and we all watched your fantastic delivery to the UN Council last week. You're also involved, we know, with Guernica 37 and various other world forums and platforms. And I guess my question is, you used your for summer, the documentary, during your talk at the UN. And my question is for summer being used as evidence? Is the footage being used as evidence of the war crimes and crimes against humanity? Particularly, you know, you gave the example of the Guernica 37, where you're currently focusing on looking at the ways that hospitals and medical workers were targeted. So over to you in terms of, you know, how the documentary is being used as evidence.
Yeah, so I mean, the work with Guernica 37 has started like 2 years ago. And at the beginning of that, like collaboration with Toby Kidman, the lawyer, and also Brahim Al-Alabi, who's a Syrian British lawyer, the first thing we did before even we started this like case, or like I would say trying to explore what can we do, was to submit all the material to the Triple IAM, which is a mechanism to collect war crimes. And there's like a whole session related to Syria. And then we started to think individually, I would say, or like more as a, like we with Guernica, to find a way of like, what can we do? Like the film is an amazing tool to use while we trying to push on governments, on politicians, on so many like levels. But also we need, and personally, like for me and Hamza, more than anything else, like we have to like use this. It's not just like a film. And for this, we started like this with Guernica 37. We understand also, and this is what Toby and Ibrahim, like thanking them again, like explain from minute one, this is a very, very long way. It's not something we can like find out or like see the impact or the effect of that like soon, not in 1 year, not in 2 years, and we might not see that at all. But what we have to do as like a human rights defender, as activists, is to try like use this as much as we can. And for me, this is really enough. Like we've been naive enough in the previous like couple of years to you know like have a set up goal for something, and like really believe that there's like a change behind this. So I would say like this is more like just an attempt, another trying to say no to what I've been through, to all these crimes, and I would keep doing this even if I really believe that there's no impact out of this.
I'm on mute, sorry, but there's definitely so much impact, Wahad. What about in terms of personal? So, you know, in the documentary, focusing on Wahad the mother, because we spent a lot of time focusing on Wahad the film director, right? And there's so many beautiful moments where you're speaking to little Summer and questioning yourself as a mother, and there's psychological impacts and trauma, I'm assuming, as a result of documenting war and the violence. Can you please share a little bit about the personal impacts?
I mean, as any young woman, I would say, like, I was 24 when I get married, 25 when I have Sama. And, like, trying to go through this experience in such circumstances like that, I was trying to learn and, like, to find my way through this. And then being pregnant again, then having Taima outside of Aleppo, which also was like a different level of like experience, I would say. It was right that when the moment when Taima was born, we were safe, we were in Turkey, but we were like suffering and facing in different kind of way. Until today, I would say I wasn't able to process all of this. I wasn't able to sit down and reflect all of this experience. Facing also until today, like the daily kind of life I'm trying to create to myself and to my daughters, being busy all the time with work. And maybe not just because I'm really busy, but because I want to be busy. So I won't think about all of this. There's definite like PTSD situation when I'm not able to face even until today, but I'm totally aware of, and I'm trying to kind of like help myself, but also make this so clear for all the other Syrians. We need help. We need like in every level, like emotionally, as a family level, as a like facing all of this death and kind of believable experience, and more focusing about the PTSD specifically, because as someone who been through this until now, I'm feeling how many times I was like literally holding, like raising my hand and say I need help mentally, and at the same time I wasn't able to go through this experience. I wasn't able to, like, I feel like I'm running. I'm not in that place where I can sit down now, because my maybe main like fear that the moment when I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna collapse and then will never be able to stand up again. So it's maybe not right to share this with people sometimes, but also I feel like this is another responsibility I have as someone who people start to, like look at my experience and maybe compare their experience with what I've done, not because I'm that important person, simply because I shared my life and I opened this through for someone. And that's for me, like another level of responsibility where like we need help, and I'm aware of this. And maybe part of my problem is that I can't really like get this help mentally for so many reasons. And that's maybe something I have to take care of, as Hamza, as well as so many friends around me. But I'm still like trying to process all of this and try to understand and reflect, what can I do as what, but also like as a mom, as a someone who's survived, as someone who trying to find hope where usually like there's not that big hope. So yeah, kind of complicated situation.
Yes. But it's, thank you so much for sharing your vulnerabilities and being so open with us about the impacts, the personal impacts that it's had. And I'm also wondering the impacts in terms of you've got all the people that you documented and recorded throughout documenting for the past 5 years. How did they respond when you were recording their, in the process of recording people's pain, people's suffering? What was the impact on them when that camera was there during their moment of pain? And just to also say again, please do pop your questions. People are being shy, Wahad. No one's put in a question yet. Please do. Look, you've got the opportunity of asking Wahad questions, so please do pop your questions in.
Yes, please. You can see I'm very open to talk about anything, so please don't be shy. Come on.
Yes.
I'm happy to answer anything, so
come on. Thank you. Come on, give us the questions. So yeah, about people responding. Yeah.
Okay, it's very great question, because it's really different from each situation to the other. Like similar exactly to what I was struggling with behind the camera, because I wasn't just like a filmmaker who's going there to film something and then leave. So I think this is kind of like a very common discussion we had even in Aleppo with other filmmakers and activists and also with other people. I think usually people kind of divided between two minds. Simply one of the main like comments was, why are we going to be filmed? Um, like at the day of the siege, the Syria story was out for almost 4 years. Um, like with so many other events, there was like first year, second year, third year, fourth year, and people start to like question. So we've been seeing all the stories coming out. Like, don't tell me the international community does not do this or does not know this. Like all these pictures of people who've been killed, of people who are injured, people who died in the sea or whatever, they've been like out everywhere. Why my picture now will make this different? And why, like, I don't want to be just like another clip or another photo was like coming out. And this is a very fair like mind, because I was also like in every like moment I was more recording, I was thinking the same. Is this going to be like another video coming out, or is this just like really will make the significant change, you know? And this is when I mentioned before, like how we were very naive, because I mean, hope sometimes is really like making us naive, but also wanting us to be survive and to make something was also like part of that feeling. On the other hand, there's people who were feeling that I don't know if this is going to change something or not, but it might. So I would be part of this. And one of the moments where you never know what was the meaning behind this, but there's this woman who, this is the specific video I used in the UN Security Council,
Mm.
because I felt it's really important to talk about. Where I was at the hospital and there was a woman who has a baby who's 6 months old, and he was killed by attack on their like building, a normal like civilians building. And she was shouting like a lot in the corridor, and I heard the sound before I even understand what's happening. And like, you know, it was very chaotic like situation where there's so many injured around. And I turned the camera toward her. I was like just seeing as much as I'm filming, and she was shouting like, are you filming, are you filming? And for a second I thought she's asking me not to film, which something totally fair at that second. So I wanted to turn the camera down and just like go to another like side. And then I heard her shouting again, saying like, film me and let the whole world see this. And she was more shouting like, why did they do this to us? Like, I lost my child, he's my life, he's my. So it was so like hard moment. But someone like her who's begging me to keep filming in this second when she just lost her child, like this is telling something, you know. She's thinking, or she might not even thinking, but she felt that like maybe this is won't make this happen again to other mother. She totally understands, she lost him forever. But there's so many reasons why she was shouting toward this, but this is a big message and big responsibility that we had responsibility with her. And I mentioned this in the UN Security Council, telling that my biggest fear and kind of like emotion was I will let her down, because I wasn't expecting I would be alive, I would survive at that second. And literally, and I said this again in the UN Security Council, like the biggest disappointment was when I went out, when I survived, when I shared these videos, when I shared like the whole film and so many other clips, and nothing happened. So they can't say they didn't know. They can't say they've never like seen something like this, because if it's not my video, there's thousands of other activists and people who filmed years of that. And the international community like is responsible about all of this.
Lovely. Yeah. Wow, word. And we've just got in a couple of questions, excellent questions. So I'll just the first question is asking about basically what's going on now in terms of your work with the media. So so the media group you talked about, they said in Aleppo, are they continuing your witnessing and recording work? So are you working with them at the minute?
Yeah, so I mean, in Aleppo, as kind of like a public thing, there's no more oppositions. There's no more people who can do something. Honestly, like it's under totally controlled by Assad regime, and we don't want anyone to put their more lives under risk because of this. But at the same time, and exactly yesterday, I got a message from a friend who lives now in the north of Syria, who was also like a filmmaker with us in Aleppo. His name is Milad. He's sending me a couple of like clips from people who are secretly filming inside Aleppo under the regime control, who trying to make something, to make stories even from places no one can really reach there. And this is, another like kind of standing against everything happened. On the other side, there's so many people still today in Idlib, in other places north of Syria, like Azaz and Afrin. And there's so many issues to report about, so many like problems. There's still shelling and bombing in Idlib side. There's so many explosive cars in in Afrin and other places. So I mean, the Syrian story is still like happening. People still threaten to be displaced or killed by shelling, by bombing hospitals, schools. Like a month ago, a market was hit by Russian aircrafts, and there was like over 9 people who were killed. 4 of them were kids at the time when they have to go to school. So like it's didn't finish. It's never finished, and there's so many things to still be happening. And for example, Aleppo Media Center, who I was mentioning before, they were in Aleppo. They were displaced with us, so they no longer can work in Aleppo, but they are now in Turkey. They still be able to provide so many filmmakers and documentaries and films about Syria from an amazing material, collected through all these years. They have an amazing archive of every little thing happened in Aleppo, and they're trying to like develop their work for more, like for documentaries, for other work. And I just think, like these amazing people who never give up and they still trying to do their best to do something. um like this is the only thing we can do now. After like a week from now, we have the 5th anniversary of the displacement out of Aleppo. And what we are doing as Action for Sama as well is to kind of like honor this memory. We are trying to do a couple of videos, like recording stories from people who worked in the siege and were displaced out of Aleppo, to document their stories, and following this with exhibition in London for one day on 15th of December, presenting some items from people who sent it us from Syria, and also our own personal material who we were lucky to get out from Aleppo as a like a memory we had. So we just, like trying in any possible way. And there's thousands of other Syrians who's trying to do so many things in different places around the world. So I mean, this is, I would say, the only thing we can feel like we have to keep going.
Well, and so the event that you have said, is that on your Action for Summer website?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
can
it's gonna be
access
like the invitation's coming out tomorrow.
that.
So please,
Super.
everyone who is in London, who's like care about this or interested, please see Action for Sama and
Yes.
see the invitation.
Fantastic. And we can share the link as well once we have
Yeah, please, yes.
access to, definitely. We just got another fantastic question in that really speaks to the activism aspect. So the question says, this discussion demonstrates how capturing the lived everyday experience is an extremely effective and powerful way of spreading awareness. However, do you think that it is possible for activism to sometimes lose touch with the ground realities that individuals in context of conflict are facing? Do you think that this can perhaps be less effective for a particular cause, or do you think that any type of activism is important? Excellent question. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. I really think like any type of activism is important. What more important in any work we are doing, it doesn't matter if it's like activism or filmmaking or whatever, but it's more like to be really honest with the people. And this is actually what I face, and as a something very hard and very important at the same time. um like, because sometimes you hold on a fake hope, and it helps you as one person, as individual, but on the like general community, this is not really helping. And we've been accused in some places that we so optimistic, or we just like, trying to make this so we can kind of like get attention or whatever. There's so many things, and people always kind of like write with their feelings, but it's not what we want to be, like it's more about how you can be honest, how you can really like don't like generate this fake hope in the moments where you really like can't see this. And one of the main things I think with going to the UN Security Council, the main challenge for me was to keep myself on the ground as much as I can, and to keep saying to myself and to everyone I have seen before or after that on social media, like, I'm not, there's no hope. There's nothing going to be changed after being there. I'm there because I have to be there, because it's my responsibility to keep telling the story. But am I going there to tell you, like, wait a second, my speech now will change the whole world and we will go back to Syria? I mean, definitely not. So I would really like, again, like bringing this up, like the honesty in everything we are doing. This is, I think, the most important thing.
Yeah, lovely. And we've just got one more final beautiful question. I'm just going to read it as it's come in. It says, Dear Wahad, thank you so much. Very inspiring. I'm very curious to know when you will return to Syria, hopefully soon, inshallah. And how and what are the messages that you will document and reflect? What will be your tools when you return, inshallah?
Yeah, inshallah.
Mm.
I mean, definitely I'm not gonna be back to Syria when Assad's still ruling Syria. Um, or at least where there's no place for us to go back to fight, like against Assad in various way, as we do as a filmmaker or as a like a civilian who living there. So I mean, this is for me like the main kind of like thing. I wish, and I sleep and wake up every day on that hope that something gonna be changed, and we will be able to find our place there, to go back and to do what we were doing before we were even displaced. Um, the other thing, what my tool would be, I'm building my career now as a filmmaker. My whole activism work is still happening, but I have also to live, and I have to keep going, and I have to like make my own career, which sometimes should be not related to Syria. And in this, like, I'm doing my second documentary, which about something I totally believe in, and it's an experience I lived, but it's not related to Syria. So it's really hard to know where I will be next, but I can see my way as a filmmaker now.
Wow, yes, that's really exciting. And in terms of thinking of the production of documentary, and because this is a question I noticed within throughout experiencing the Fosama, the constant change of space around you. So throughout the years, you were documenting the revolution and war, and the space in which you were living was constantly reconstructed and deconstructed. Aleppo's buildings were falling, the makeshift hospital was being bombed. Can you just share a little bit about that changing space of Aleppo and Syria, and how you went about capturing the changing faces and spaces of Aleppo, and what kind of Syria you sought to read, capture, and construct during the process of your documentary making?
To be honest, I wasn't seeing any of this when I was there,
Yeah.
because we were living through this, and you can't really see this until like the film was out. And yeah, now from London I can see this all changing of everything. There I was like just there. I wasn't able like to like see anything outside that. But now when I'm thinking about Syria now, and hopefully being back there, the main hope we have is to have like a free country, a country who respect their own people. And I know this is not going to be like a straightforward like journey, and I know that we might live in the next or in the future worse than what we have lived through Aleppo. But what I really believe in that this is all important to gain our goal and our country, as so many other countries have been through like this until they are now like a stable, free, like having dignity, like as the people who living there. So it's just very difficult. And as someone also who've been through a lot of trauma, it's more about, I learned so much how to learn to live day by day. I have to think more about now and like further. And I'm learning to do this now. So I'm not very good at, like where can you see yourself in 5 years or
Yeah,
something?
yeah, live the moment.
Yeah.
And we also, again, just got another beautiful, lovely message saying thank you for your work on this amazing film. Um, war, because you spoke about goals and hopes, and the question is, were your hopes for the impact of the film fulfilled after its release? Did you get what you were aiming for?
I mean, I got more than what I really hoped for. And, again, this is kind of like the naive hope we had before taught me that when the film will be out, no one is going to watch it. And just to see the amazing reaction, again, not just from where we've been, but also where places who I've never like known about, who they show the film, but also the reaction that the people still showing after they see the film, and the amazing response to the campaign Action for Sama, where I can see so many people just wanted to do something and to be part of anything we are doing. So that's really like give me so much hope and give me so much faith in people, because unfortunately, because everything we've been through, we kind of like lost that. So yeah, I'm really so grateful for all the amazing reaction we got from the film.
Thank you, Ad. And I'm really, really grateful for you being here with us. And I think the way that I would like to kind of close in a way is to ask you what we can do to help. So you've shared and definitely reached your mission in terms of documenting the injustice, the war crimes, and the crimes against humanity. Your mission was to deliver it to the world, and you have delivered it to the world. You did what that mother asked you to do. She said, film, film, let the whole world see, and we have seen. But just, we don't want to be mere spectators like the world leaders. And we as a public, those in the West, those who are listening, want to help. So what can we do to help? You've already told us about Fosama. Maybe you could tell us a bit more, but can you let's just tell us what we can do to help you and all Syrians?
Main thing I would really ask for is to share the story more, to tell people more about what you know about Syria. And like there's various way of doing this. If you are a mother, like please taught your children about what happened, and like that the door of their house is not the end of the world, and there's so many things happening, awful things happening outside. I know that every mom wants to protect their children, but they have to understand, because who we raise them on today, they are like will be up later, and they're gonna be like the people who's rolling next. So it's really like try to share this as much as you can in the best way you think it's possible for them. If you are a teacher, like taught this to your children. If you are like a lawyer, please find your way to help any case about Syria. If you're not like kind of like an international lawyer or someone who can use their power with the cases, please help any refugees family who are around you in the neighborhood. Like if you are a filmmaker or if you are like a journalist, please keep reporting about what's happening. Please keep following. Like we've never had one day without bad news in Syria. And if you look today at the channels and the TVs, there's no mention at all. And we totally understand why, but it's our responsibility to keep reminding people about all of this. Like if you are a doctor, if you are just like someone in this community, like please look around and see who other people need to be helped. And like the last thing, which is very important, and I started to understand this from living within this community, like people here are the most powerful tools all the like politicians and decision maker use. So I mean, please keep reporting this to your MP. Like you have the right to see
Yes,
them, like on some bases, you have the right to write to them. So please, like, send this question to your MP, ask them what you are doing, like, about what's happening in Syria, reminding them, give them like kind of news, or push them to do something. There's various organization and people who are working in different level, and all of this organization needs support, and the people in Syria need support as well. So please find your way. Like, we were working with Choose Love through this like 3-4 years to raise more like donation. We had our own donation on Action for Sama, but you don't need just to look at us. There's so many organizations who's trying to do something. Please find your research, do your own way, and try to like help the people who still until today in Syria. And it's not just about money, it's about like nice words, it's about give them the feeling that they are not being forgotten. And the social media made this so easy, like, to find and to reach out to. So I mean, anyone can do anything, and there's so much things to be done. So please just find your way and do something.
Fantastic, Waad. And I think it would just be amazing if you can, as you know, Cara, the Council for At-Risk Academics, this project is working with over 50 Syrians, scholars and academics. Many of them are tuned in, but of course in Turkey right now, it's like 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have contacted me as well and said, because it's going to be recorded, they're all going to be watching. Many of them are going to be watching tomorrow. As a closing statement, can you give them a message to the people of Syria in Turkey, to the people of Syria in Syria, just your closing statement to them?
I mean, I know maybe I'm not the right person to do this for you all, but what I really want to say that I've never felt like I'm Syrian until the revolution started, and I will never ever forget this feeling. So I'm today maybe in London. I'm so far away from where you are. I don't know, like, or I know, but I'm not living through what you are living. If you are in Turkey, or if you are in the camps around Syria and Lebanon, Jordan, or in Idlib today, or even under the regime control with all the worst and the bad circumstances there. But I really share with you the same hope that something and someday something gonna be like everything will be okay. And this is might be like a fake hope, but what we can do and what we are going to do is all our best to keep going and to keep fighting. Um, this is not a request for all of you, but I just feel like we are all sharing the same pain together, and I hope we are also sharing the same dream.
Thank you so much, Waad. On behalf of Cara, At-Risk Academics, on behalf of all 50 of the Syrians that we are working with, and on behalf of everyone who's listening and the world, I would like to thank you. Thank you for documenting what is happening in Syria. Thank you for teaching us about the truth of what is happening in Syria. And thank you for welcoming us to join you to actively work towards constructing an alternative, better, differential Syria and differential world that we can all inhabit, breathe, and live in collectively. In solidarity with you, Waad.
I mean, thank you so much. And I really want to thank you back about having me here, and also about working with all these amazing Syrian people. And just, like to think about who represents Syria. It's not Assad, it's not all the crimes that's happening, but it's these individuals who make like an amazing like achievement in their, not just in their life, but in the life of Syrian history. And at the end, like, all of this will never be forgotten. So thank you so much for all of this, and for all the 50 people who you were working with.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. Good night.